Bangladesh's Additional Inspector General Police has warned against speculation surrounding the location of Hadi's killer, meaning they have admitted that there's no credible evidence to establish that Hadi's killer is in India. Moreover, BNP's veteran politician Nilofer Chaudhry Moni has dropped a bombshell revelation. What is it? Moni has alleged that a senior Jamaat-e-Islami leader and prominent lawyer Shishir Manir had twice secured bail for Hadi's alleged killer. Now remember, this contradicts earlier reports that claim that Hadi's killer was associated only with the student wing of the Awami League, that is the Bangladesh Chhatra League. In fact, Moni has claimed that the suspected shooter had links to multiple political groups. That includes the Jamaat circle as well, raising the question, was Hadi killed by the Jamaatis and not the Awami League as was being claimed earlier? And who stands to gain by wiping out these youth leaders? These very youth leaders who ousted Sheikh Hasina in August of 2024. Meanwhile, New Delhi has rejected what it calls misleading propaganda over a protest outside the Bangladesh High Commission. India's MEA has clarified that the protest was a brief gathering against the lynching of Hindu man Deepu Chandra Das. But Dhaka has termed the protest unjustifiable, stating that Deepu's killing was an isolated incident. Again, no concrete action against the violence perpetrated against the Hindus in Bangladesh. Also, Dhaka University has renamed Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman Hall to Osman Hadi Hall, a decision critics say elevates the anti-India sentiment. Importantly, intel sources have revealed to CNN News 18 that Pakistan and Bangladesh are working on a mutual defense agreement. That defense agreement will be similar to scope to Pakistan's defense cooperation arrangements with Saudi Arabia, meaning Pakistan will now cover training, capacity building and professional exchanges for Bangladesh's strategic development. So viewers, what bearing will this new axis have on New Delhi? This when there's limited democracy, Islamization of polity and external power politics at play. Tonight on Brass Tacks, let's interrogate the political crisis in Bangladesh. To begin with, the radical reset in Dhaka is underway in full swing. Here's how. Islamist leader and India-hating Usman Hadi has been tagged as a martyr, a shaheed by Yunus. He was accorded full state honours on the weekend and National Mourning Day was announced following his death. He was buried near national poet Nazrul, further boosting his radical status. Not just that, there's full public display of ISIS flags, enticing youth towards extremism. Jihadi chants are raised as a means to reinforce extremism and unite radicals. Jamaat-e-Islami linked network groups are running amok in Dhaka as we speak, and the attacks on Hindus and minorities proof enough of the rising impunity for radicals, an attack that's been taking place since August of 2024. Anti-India hatred is on the rise in Dhaka, and top intel sources have informed us of a third front against India that's already in the making. In a CNN News 18 exclusive news break, we've learned that Bangladesh is eyeing a Saudi-style pact with Pakistan. So Pakistan and Bangladesh will be working on mutual defense agreement. The proposal has already been discussed at top diplomatic military levels. Joint mechanism has been formed to draft agreement as Dhaka's military is keen on a strategic defense pact. Multiple rounds of military level talks have been held and Army, Air Force, Navy chiefs of both nations have met repeatedly. Several military MOUs have already been signed. The draft is likely after Bangladesh general elections to be taking place. Now, this entire reset in ties is taking place rapidly after Sheikh Hasina's ouster. We are also learning that Pakistan is in talks with 8 countries on similar pacts. What bearing will this have on New Delhi? Let's deep dive, and for that, let me introduce my guests today. I'm joined in by Ambassador Veena Sikri, who's a former Indian High Commissioner to Bangladesh, Sushant Sareen, who's a senior fellow at ORF, Dr. Mohsen Ali, a renowned freedom fighter of Bangladesh in 1971. Thank you so much, Dr. Ali. And I'm also joined in by Salahuddin Shoaib Chaudhry, a renowned Bangladesh journalist. Thank you so much to all of you for joining in. Dr. Mohsen Ali, if I may begin with you, I think you're the best person to comment on the kind of Islamization we are seeing. Much credit is offered to Sheikh Hasina for cracking down on the hardliners, especially the ones who were also in the opposition. but was enough done? What explains the sudden burst of these hardliners now running amok?
Yeah, hi, good morning from New York. Thank you very much for inviting me into your program. Yes, we know what's going on in Bangladesh now, and Sheikh Hasina was the right person to run Bangladesh situation. And during her tenure, and from 2009 to 2024 middle, so there is no Islamization, there is no terrorism. There's some occasional terrorism, but Sheikh Hasina fixed all those. And Bangladesh was enjoying the golden period, golden time during her regime and during her rule. And Bangladesh has got tremendous development uh, during her time that Bangladesh never saw before. But after her ousted, for last about 15 months, 16 months, Bangladesh is going down all the way to the Pakistan level. And Pakistan is very deeply involved in Bangladesh from middle of last year, because they want Bangladesh into back into the Pakistani fold, like as East Pakistan or a confederation with Pakistan. Because Pakistan wanted another front against India, so that Pakistan can fight out India from east and from west, both sides. That's why they're making this the military pact, like Saudi Arabia that you just explained. And these militants are trained by India, sorry, trained by Pakistan, because the IS style, the Khilafat style government they want to install in Bangladesh under the leadership of Jamaat Islami. And there are a lot of the militant groups in Bangladesh, and all are under Jamaat Islami. And Jamaat Islami wanted to occupy Bangladesh, and in fact, they occupied the Bangladesh. And Dr. Yunus is just the puppet of their ideology. Although Dr. Yunus is a world-renowned person, but he's a puppet of Pakistan. So this is how the terrorists are like developed in Bangladesh under the leadership of Jamaat Islami. They in secretly that, as they describe that is a meticulous design. They have been training for over last 53 years since the Bangladesh was liberated with the help of India.
So, Shoaib, if I may quickly bring you in on that point that Dr. Mohsen has just now raised, do you think that they were always dormant? They never went away, these dark forces, so to say, whether it is Hafazat-e-Islami or the Jamaatis, they were always perhaps operating, and so was the ISI through these Jamaatis, and maybe, just maybe, Sheikh Hasina's crackdown on these militant organizations also helped them to unite together, because remember, that is also what ensured the ouster of Sheikh Hasina. Yet one wonders, why are student leaders now being attacked and targeted, when it was these very student leaders that helped them to ensure that Sheikh Hasina is sent out of the country?
Thank you very much, Akanksha. Please allow me to tell the truth. Since 1971, the independence of Bangladesh, each and every government, including that of Sheikh Hasina, has this way or that way appeased Islamists and upheld political Islam. Now, when we are talking about Sheikh Hasina's government, she has definitely fought terrorism, militancy in one hand, and she has patronized Hafazat-e-Islam, which does not believe in democracy, which promotes caliphate rule. Sheikh Hasina was at the utmost promoter of the Gaza madness, the anti-Israel madness, chanting slogans in favor of Palestine on the streets of Bangladesh, and even passing very much unacceptable anti-Semitic remarks targeting Jews. So this is absolutely has to be taken into account, that Sheikh Hasina has done tremendous good things in this country in economic development. Sheikh Hasina has done tremendous good things in improving relations with India, no doubt. But she has also tried to improve relations with Pakistan, with China. which is very double standard on the first hand. Secondly, I mean, Bangladesh being a country of the Bengalis, we should follow uphold our secularist principle, and secularist principle does not allow us in following the madness of Arabs like Palestine and Gaza and whatever. So what we are seeing today is very unfortunate, very scary, but this is the result of the blunders committed by all the governments since 1971.
I'm actually taken back to the memories of how it was always called the Bengali nationalism back in 1971 and not so much about Bangladeshi nationalism. But if I may quickly bring in Ambassador Sikri on that note. Ambassador Sikri, there's a lot of chatter here in India if India's responses, have they been are you satisfied with India's response, especially when it comes to this unabated attack on minorities that's been taking place in these bouts of violence that we are seeing? Yes, I'm again going to have to refer to that parliamentary committee report chaired by Dr. Tharoor, which says that internal matters of Bangladesh should be left as internal matters. But what about the Hindus or the minorities? That includes the Christians, the Buddhists too.
You know, I think right from day one, when Sheikh Hasina left Bangladesh on 5th of August, and the attack on the minorities was the very first thing that was undertaken. Her plane had hardly left the country, and you had this vicious attack on all the minorities. So much so that when Prime Minister Modi sent his first message to Mohammed Yunus, message of felicitation, in that very message he mentioned about his concern about the condition of the minorities in Bangladesh. So there has been this huge attack, and India has taken it up right front. So I think the first thing is that India has also said that we will wait for the election results. And having said that, and saying that we will have substantive discussions with an elected government. But having said that, we also said that we want and we insist on free, fair, inclusive and participatory elections in order for them to be credible. Now, this is not a question of interference. This is a question of wanting a prosperous, democratic and stable Bangladesh. I think that we know, in all our good neighborly relations, what our countries say about each other. We know what the Western countries are saying about, Bangladesh and so on. So I think there's no question of interference here in anyone's internal affairs. We have said quite clearly that we don't accept that. But we have said at the same time that because we have a 4,000-kilometer long border with Bangladesh, anything happening within Bangladesh has a direct impact on the stability and security of the border and on what is happening in India. The security repercussions of what is happening in Bangladesh, of whipping up the anti-Indian rhetoric, of trying to take every measure to bring an Islamist government to power, to talk about a caliphate, to talk about, having Sharia law in Bangladesh, and what that would mean for the security and stability of our bordering areas and of the relationship with Bangladesh. We are all very aware of that. So Indian government has been exercise a lot of strategic restraint in what they are doing, but they are following the situation very carefully, and I think they will.
And quickly, before I go across to Sushant, do you think that this strategic restraint that in diplomacy would also be, of course, it can be called strategic restraint, but could this backfire given that so far we've only been giving clarifications about why that protest took place outside the Bangladesh High Commission? Yes, we are in a position of wait and watch, as you rightly highlighted. Much also depends on, say, the election results. Our call for a free and fair election, notwithstanding the fact that Awami League is banned and you have Sheikh Hasina on Indian soil. Ambassador Sikri, I'd like your thoughts.
Oh, yeah. No, I think absolutely. I think that we are quite within our rights to do that because I think, see the situation, how it developed in the last 18 months. All right. In July, August last year, maybe there was a strong anti-incumbency feeling against Sheikh Hasina. And if, as an interim regime is mandated, although when the interim regime was sworn in, it was on a constitution that had no provision for an interim regime. But still, the mandate, if you consider it, is for 90 days, hold elections, no reforms. The regime of Mohammed Yunus has violated every condition. They have brought in Islamists. You're showing on your visuals of the flag of the ISIS shown above the Bangladesh flag.
Right.
I mean, absolutely amazing, and nobody in Bangladesh has even commented on it. I would say even the Indian media has been quiet. I don't know why, because I remember this Chinmoy Das, who was coordinating the meetings of the minority communities in Bangladesh, and in one procession we had the Bangladesh flag, and a photographic image showed the Sanatani flag showing a little above. My gosh, there was such a hue and cry in the Bangladesh media. They wanted to lynch Chinmoy Das on that very point. And in fact, today on this showing the ISIS flag as superior to the Bangladesh flag, and nobody's commenting, is reflection of the Islamism that is being projected. But the reality on the ground is that 18 months down the road, I think people have turned their minds against Mohammed Yunus. The Jamaat-e-Islami thought they would benefit from immediate popularity.
Okay.
They have not. And I think their vote bank remains as shallow as it was before. There is, in fact, every evidence that the vote bank will again be divided between the BNP and the Awami League. And the Awami League vote bank of 35-40% seems more or less intact. So I think the only answer is to have free, fair, and inclusive elections. Let everybody be there. Let them be free and fair. And let anybody win. Whoever wins the election, they are reflecting the will of the people.
Okay.
The government of India has said they will be happy to deal with them.
Sushan, thank you for so patiently awaiting your turn. If I may finally bring you in, okay, that, okay. So I want to ask you, as Ambassador very rightly touched upon the waving of this ISIS flag, it speaks 1,000 words. We already have credible evidence to establish that, say, the HUGB, the HUT, they are all in, trying to bring back an Al-Qaeda kind of model in, say, Bangladesh. What would this mean for our own border vulnerabilities?
Akanja, I think it's pretty obvious what it will mean. It's going to destabilize our border regions. It's going to send in terrorism, and there's going to be a spike of terrorism. We saw insurgencies in the past before 2009 being fueled in the northeastern states through Bangladesh. There were terror groups which had received safe sanctuary in Bangladesh. And to Sheikh Hasina's credit, she came and dismantled all that terror infrastructure that had been built up over decades. So yes, I think she did a lot of good stuff, and I completely agree with what Salahuddin Saab is saying, that while she did all the good stuff and she did try to marginalize the Islamists, she also flirted with a certain section of them. Perhaps it was in part because she was trying to cut the movement in half. But whatever it might have been, whatever the motivations, you do not rear up some snakes so that they can bite other snakes. All snakes are the same, and you need to treat them the same way. And I think that was a strategic mistake she made. I think the strategic mistake India is making, I'm not entirely convinced. I'm sure Ambassador Sikri is going to lambast me for saying what I'm going to say. I don't know if what we are showing is strategic restraint or it's strategic paralysis. Because after all, the situation, and I'm not as sanguine, I've said this earlier, Ambassador Sikri and I have been kind of sparring over this issue.
Fortunately for you, Sushant Sareen, you're sitting in India, not in Bangladesh, so please go ahead.
Yeah. No, fortunately for both Ambassador Sikri and for me. But my point is that she is very optimistic that, the rest of the public will rise up and the voting will happen and forces of moderation will come through. I'm not entirely convinced that's what's going to happen. I also don't think that the kind of incidents we are seeing in Bangladesh signifies a lack of control. I suspect that this is something far more sinister. I think a lot of, look, for example, the killing of that Hindu man Dipu Das. He was in police custody. It wasn't as though it was a mob which came and, lynched him on the street.
And there's not a single testimony to establish the fact that he indulged in blasphemy.
Look, blasphemy is a red herring. You can accuse anybody of blasphemy and,
But nobody has, all my research states is that there's nobody who stepped forward to say that they heard something.
No, that's a completely irrelevant question, Akansha, because you can accuse anybody of blasphemy, because we see this in Pakistan every day. You accuse anybody of blasphemy, you collect a bunch of people and, you create an incident and you lynch the man. And a lot of these cases happen because you don't like somebody, there's a personal dispute, there is a property dispute, something or the other. And this is the simplest way of getting rid of your opponents. Now, I'm sure in Bangladesh, there is also a religious motivation, which is why these people are targeted. But quite clearly, the fact that you can take out somebody from police custody and lynch him and burn him alive, it tells you a lot of what is happening. So it's not as simple as just a mob, an enraged mob going and carrying out this kind of lynching. And this is not, as according to what the regime spokespersons are saying, that this is an isolated incident. This is not an isolated incident. There is documentation of the kind of pogroms that have been carried out against the Hindu community ever since over the last year and a half or thereabouts.
Okay, Ambassador Veera Sikri, would you like to weigh in on that? Because if we go by the figures, just in 2025 alone, the Bangladesh Buddhist, Hindu, Christian, the Okya Parishad has reported 27 plus Dipu's death makes it 28. And since August of 2024, you're looking close to 2,450 deaths. What do you make of this? And should India intervene? What can India do, even if it has to intervene?
I think India has to come out very strongly against this. And the BBC and others, there's been documentation, there have been reports, it's been discussed at human rights conferences. I do not think we can let this just slip by. I think we should be very, very strong on this, because it is a reflection of the sheer barbarism of the regime and turning a blind eye. And Mohammed Yunus dismissing anybody who asked him the question, saying fake news from India. This time he couldn't do it on Dipu Chandra Das's case because there was such a furor about it, and that's why there should be a similar furor about others. We should call out the way in which the regime in Bangladesh has turned a blind eye. And the fact is that this time the younger generation of the minorities have said that we are staying in Bangladesh. This is our country, we are citizens, we want our rights. And Chinmoy Das had placed a very simple 8-point demand before the regime, saying, simply have a separate ministry, have various rights and so on. And there's no answer. There's no consideration of that at all. They want to show that they're not interested in the minorities. They would like the minorities to leave Bangladesh. But I think that if they don't take account of the minorities, they will soon know what could follow, and it won't be very nice.
Shoaib, I want to quickly bring you in on the aspect of the Pakistan ISI. We have credible information to establish the fact that an ISI cell is already operating out of the Pakistan High Commission in Dhaka. If Bangladesh and Pakistan are going to be looking at a strategic pact, the same on the lines that they have with Saudi Arabia, this is going to set a very dangerous precedent for India as well. It will have, it's also going to pose considerable strategic concerns for us. How much of an involvement can you see right now as far as Pakistan's ISI is concerned with the ongoing, extremist protests on the streets?
Akanksha, Pakistan succeeded in entering my country since last year jihadist coup, I should say.
Are you sure it was just last year, or they remained dormantly involved, say, with organizations like Jamaatis?
They got the opportunity of entering my country with the agenda of destroying Bangladesh and taking revenge of 1971. And when I'm talking to you and Her Excellency and my fellow journalist Susan Sarin, they all know that there are 5 offices openly operating in Dhaka city of ISI, and one office is called Dhaka Center in the Mahakali DHS road number 5, where they are housing Paresh Barua. Yes, road number 5. I'm telling you very categorically. Mahakali, Her Excellency has been to Bangladesh, she knows the area. Mahakali DHS, road number 5. Pakistan is not only patronizing and sponsoring local terrorists and radicals. I will post a video after some time. You will see that Pakistani ISI is giving training to ARSA, Rohingya, Arakan Rohingya Salvation Army. They are giving them training. They are giving them weapons. They are giving them explosives. So Pakistan is, in one hand, by facilitating the local jihadis, they are preparing them to launch attack inside India, and by giving training to ARSA, actually Pakistan is creating the future demons for Myanmar and also China. Pakistan is a country which should never be trusted by any nation, because it always backstabs the nation it tries to make friendship. So whatever is happening in Bangladesh today, Pakistani ISI is only and exclusively responsible. And if you are asking me about the other US districts, but Pakistani defense minister said that they execute the dirty work on behalf of US state, Britain and Europe. So Pakistan is doing everything. They want to take revenge from my country because we Bengalis, the beauty and strength of us is Bengali nationalism that makes us distinctively different from with the Pakistanis.
Sushant Sareen, this is indeed going to pose a major strategic challenge to India, and not just strategic, but also in terms of trade. You're looking at connectivity. All of that is now going to go for a toss. Border vulnerability, something you just highlighted, but as Shoaib was also highlighting, the Arakan Rohingya Salvation Army, which there's already much evidence to back the claims that Pakistan is backing this army. What could this mean, say, in terms of the strategic challenges that we will now see across the border?
Look, I think the strategic challenges are very clear. We've already have a Myanmar which is deeply disturbed, and now we have a Bangladesh which is deeply disturbed. So our entire eastern flank is in a sense destabilized. So quite clearly, some of
you're looking at 1.3 million refugees from the Rohingya camps who are going to be radicalized now.
Yeah, that's true. More than the 1.3 million Rohingya refugees, I'm looking at 180 million Bangladeshis who are going to be radicalized. I think that is a bigger concern as far as I am concerned. And what it means is that our entire eastern flank is now destabilized, or is getting destabilized very fast. So quite clearly, I think the normal channels of diplomacy, you can keep using them for whatever they are worth. But I suspect that we need to use some undiplomatic and perhaps extra diplomatic methods also, to make sure that we can counter some of the stuff which is going to be pouring down or pouring through our borders. We are seeing some of it in Manipur already, and we're trying to handle it with kid gloves. I think the time for kid gloves is getting over, and we really need to think this thing through. Because if you think that through just normal diplomatic channels you'll be able to address this, I think we have another thought coming.
Dr. Mohsin, your thoughts on the kind of undoing of history that we are seeing happen, that also requires, say, renaming of cultural centers. We've seen how Bangabandhu's hall that was dedicated in the university has been renamed. What do you make of this sort of radicalization on the ground level, and even if you look at changing of history?
Yeah, that's right. They want to redo this 1971. They want to undo the 1971. So Pakistan wants to take revenge against India and against the Bangladesh freedom fighters, against Sheikh Mujib, our Bangabandhu, father of the nation, and against Awami League Sheikh Hasina, who broke Pakistan and made independent Bangladesh with the help of India. And now, since they are in power, and Pakistan is heavily involved in Bangladesh politics and also in military, because few hundred Pakistani armed forces are in Bangladesh now. They are giving the training to the Bangladesh terrorists and giving arms and weapons, and in the name of supplying foods, they are bringing arms.
Right.
They are bringing drugs, and they are polluting Bangladesh with all these bad things. So they're changing the name of the hall, student hall, from Bangabandhu to Hadi. Hadi is a minor thing. I don't know why they are highlighting why they're making Hadi as a national hero. He is a terrorist.
Exactly my point. And I want to quickly give closing thoughts to Ambassador Sikri on that note. Eulogizing a terrorist, and I want to bring you in on the aspect of Western hypocrisy over here, Ambassador Sikri, because you look at countries, even if I say I discount the United States, I discount Germany, but a time-tested ally like France is giving eulogies to a man like Hadi. Suddenly, all of these Western nations have forgotten about the human rights violations, the kind of vandalism that is being targeted against, say, monuments, all of these cultural centers. Not a word of condemnation coming in from any of these Western nations.
Yeah, I'm absolutely shocked at this, and I think one has to call out this hypocrisy because a diplomat is supposed to be non-partisan. It's supposed to be absolutely non-partisan. You keep in touch with everybody, all the political parties. Here you have, Germany sending flying the flag at half-mast. They're being so partisan, and the person who was till July last year was not known at all, and who has, just spent 18. He's rabidly anti-India. That's what he's known for in all his speeches, and you have other Western embassies expressing condolences in glowing terms and so on. It's completely partisan. And why is it that they suddenly find that this Usman Hadi is worthy of all this partisan, and not a word from any of them about Deepu Chandra Das and the way he was treated and so on. So the comparison, the partisanship is absolutely shocking. I think it's high time we called it out. Because after this, you cannot imagine any of these countries telling India what they should do or should not do.
All right.
I think we have to call it out.
Many thanks to you, Ambassador Sikri, and the gentleman for joining in on the Brass Tacks. It was a pleasure having you and your insights on the show. Shifting focus now over to Tamil Nadu. Against lighting of the lamps at Deepathun, the Stalin government provided heavy police protection to allow the hoisting of a ceremonial flag atop the Sikandar Dargah today, located atop the Thiruparakundram hill that has been in news because the state government denied the lighting of a ceremonial Hindu lamp next to the temples. Earlier in the day, tension prevailed near the hill entrance when around 20 people blocked entry to the path leading to the Dargah, demanding permission to climb the hill to light the Deepam. But the police denied them. Protesters were detained and taken to a private hall and released in the evening. The stark contradiction has sparked a larger debate. Why does one religious expression find accommodation while the other faces obstruction? Here's exactly what transpired today. 12 men of the Muslim community hoisted a flag atop the Sikandar Dargah for traditional Sandana Kudu festival, following which right-wing groups and BJP cadres objected to this move. They stated they should also be allowed to light the Deepam on the sub judice Deepathun. As police resisted the attempt of the right-wing groups and BJP to march forward to the hill, a scuffle broke out between both. Police detained more than 60 of the protesters following the scuffle. Meanwhile, the district police has announced that they will allow the public to climb to the hilltop to offer prayers at the Unchi Pillayar temple. The NDA has now come down heavily on the Stalin government, calling out what they call double standards on the Deepam Row. Listen.
This is the anti-Hindu, anti-Sanatan face of DMK. On the one hand, the DMK prevents Hindus from lighting the sacred Kartigai Deepam at the Deepathun, the sacred pillar. But on the other hand, it gives permission to the Dargah there to conduct its own ceremonies and to even raise the flag. Why this double standards? Do Hindus have no rights in their own country and their own state? And Congress is with this. Uddhav Sena is with this. TMC is with this. But in reality, all of them are anti-Hindu.
The role of the elected government to ensure that there is peace that prevails in the section of the society. But what DMK wants is DMK wants a bloodbath in Thiruparamkundram so that it can appease a section of the people for vote bank politics, keeping Udaynidhi in mind. They have not done their job. 2005, leader Amma called in for a peace committee meeting and ensured that peace prevails in Thiruparamkundram, wherein this government has not taken any such effort so far. They are only interested to play the religion card in Thiruparamkundram issue, and it is the total colossal failure of MK Stalin and his incompetence which is leading to this stalemate.
While the recent developments have further reinforced BJP's biased attack, the latest court hearings have raised questions on state government's neutrality. The DMK government had claimed that the Deepathun near Dargah does not belong to Hindus, and the Dargah side has now made a fresh claim alleging that the pillar is located on the land granted to Dargah in 1920. The Stalin government alleges that the Deepathun was not meant for lighting the Kartigai Deepam, and the Dargah side has now claimed that there is no historical evidence to prove that Deepam was lit at this very pillar. Let's quickly bring you a report by Purnima Murli.
Well, protests continue at the Thiruparakundram region. This after the Revenue District Administration had given a go-ahead for the Dargah authorities to hoist the flag at the Dargah late on Sunday and protests escalated. There were over 60 protesters from the Hindu outfits. They raised slogans saying that the Tamil Nadu government is biased. Why give permission for the Dargah authorities and not for the devotees to light the Deepam at the Deepatun? So these were some of the slogans raised, following which over 60 people were detained. Meanwhile, with police security, the flag was taken to the Dargah, which is located atop the Tirupurukundram hill, and was hoisted. The actual festival, the Sandanakudu festival, is scheduled to take place on the 6th of January at the Dargah, which is when protests are likely to snowball by the Hindu outfits. This around the 5th or 6th, we can see more developments there. Meanwhile, tense situation continues at Tirupurukundram region, and politics and blame game continues to escalate as far as this issue is concerned. The Tamil Nadu government on its side says that for the Dargah, permission has been given year after year, just like the way at the Hindu temple, the Uchi Pulayar temple, every year Deepam is lit for the last 100 years. Permission has been given for that. In the same way, permission has been given for the Dargah authorities to celebrate that festival and to hoist the flag, and they are treating both communities as equals. But the Deepatun in question, that is where the lamp has never been lit, and considering that the case is sensitive, they do not want to give permission, and they are waiting for the Madurai bench to give directions. Meanwhile, the court has reserved the order. All eyes on that, whether the Deepam can be lit at the Deepatun or not. We'll have to wait for the court order.
All right, shifting focus over to the other big story we've been tracking all day. It's a disturbing incident that took place at the Delhi airport on Saturday and has once again put the spotlight on whose interests truly matter when it comes to the aviation system: the passengers or the powerful few within it. An alleged assault involving a pilot and a passenger has now triggered public outrage and serious questions about accountability. And need we establish more? That bloodied face of the passenger speaks 1,000 words. The airline has announced that the pilot has been suspended, but beyond that, there's little clarity, no visible reprimand, no confirmation of a complete internal inquiry, and no reassurances to all of those passengers that the matter is being treated with utter seriousness it deserves. At the heart of this case lies a larger pattern, one where passenger interests, safety and dignity often appear to be secondary. So when disruptions occur, when misconduct is alleged, it is the traveller who bears the consequences of it. Yet when it comes to action, clarity is still elusive. Why so? Here's what has come as a fresh twist in the tale, the two versions. Let's break it down for you. One of the victims and the other the pilot. Victim Ankit Diwan claims that he was guided to the security check that staff uses as his family had a 4-month-old baby in a stroller. The accused part that the incident was purely a personal matter and took place when the pilot was travelling as a passenger who was not on duty. Victim claims that the staff was cutting queue ahead of him, and when he objected to it, he was called uneducated. So the accused pilot has said that the incident had no connection to his professional role and that the outrage is one-sided and facts are being misrepresented. The victim claims that a verbal scuffle broke out and he was assaulted. And the pilot says that the victim is selectively presenting the details of this incident. Meanwhile, the airline has suspended the pilot from official duties pending investigation and said that appropriate disciplinary action will be initiated based on inquiry. More importantly, the CISF has submitted its report to the Ministry of Civil Aviation. Incident began as a verbal altercation between the pilot and the passenger is what they are saying in that report. Verbal altercation went on for several minutes before turning violent. Now, the CISF personnel on duty intervened only after the situation turned violent. Pilot was not on duty but used his pilot uniform and iCard to jump the queue. Passenger was not forced to sign an undertaking not to file any complaints. Staying with the story, we're getting in breaking inputs right now. A complaint was received today by the Delhi police through an email from Ankit Diwan. So the FIR is currently being registered in this entire matter under appropriate sections of law, and the investigation will be taken up is what we are being told. Let's quickly go across to CNN News 18's Anvit Srivastava, who brings us those inputs. Anvit, what are you learning? What are the grounds for this FIR?
See, Aransha, earlier in the day when we spoke to Ankit Diwan, he had confirmed that he has written a long, detailed mail to Delhi Police as he had just returned from the vacation. And today morning, he had written that email on which now Delhi Police has confirmed that the email complaint has been received and action is being taken. Now, an FIR formal letter will be registered, after which sections of assault and criminal intimidation we are beginning would be slapped. Also, it could be possible that the pilot, because he has also raised a similar allegation that casteist words and remarks were used against him by Deepam. So, if he raises a complaint, then police will also take cognizance of that, and a cross FIR could be done in this case. But police have said so far that they are in the process of registering an FIR, and this matter will be investigated further. Delhi Airport, we believe that has also given access to CCTV footages from the incident from the departure terminal where the incident took place to Delhi Police, and also CISF has submitted a detailed incident report, because the incident took place within the terminal, and CISF is on duty securing the terminal. So CISF has given its detailed report to Minister of Civil Aviation, which also will be part of the investigation. So based on all of the data and the evidence that will be collected by police and CISF, then further this matter will be investigated by Delhi Police. Complaints have been raised from both the sides. However, an MLC was also will be done on now after the complaint has been received on Ankit Diwan due to his medical condition, and also the injury that he had alleged that he has received. So based on that, investigation will be done, and FIR we are believing will be registered by tomorrow.
All right. Many thanks to you, Anvit, for bringing us all those latest inputs. Let me quickly now open the floor for a discussion with my honourable guests. I'm joined in by retired Lieutenant General K.J.S. Dhillon, who's a former General Officer in commanding of 15 Corps of the Indian Army. I'm also joined in by Captain C.S. Randhawa, who's a former pilot of a Boeing 777 and former General Manager Air India, former Deputy Chief Flight Operations Inspector at the DGCA as well. Many thanks to you, gentlemen, for joining in. Lieutenant General Dhillon, what do you make of the legal team's argument that has been provided for Captain Virendra Sejwal? They're saying that the officer was not on duty and that much objectionable remarks were passed against him that also included casteist slur.
Good evening, ma'am, and good evening to the fellow panelists and your viewers. Ma'am, first of all, let's get few things clear in this aspect. Question is not whether the gentleman was on duty or not duty. If he was not on duty, he had no legal right to ask for the privilege which is only reserved for a pilot on duty. That is to go ahead in a queue, get the security check done so that he can reach the plane earlier and go and do his duty properly and is in a cool frame of mind. Now, when he is a normal passenger in a civil dress, not even wearing his pilot's uniform, which has stripes and other things, which is visibly you can make out he's a crew. Now, if that is not there, then he has to behave as a passenger. Now, second point which is there is alibi of pilot, being this and that does not stand to logic. It is untenable since he was a bona fide civil dress wearing passenger in another airline. Now, more important point is, if a gentleman can be, mentally disturbed so much that is, he loses his cool. What happens when he's in a cockpit and his coffee takes a little longer to come to him? What if the coffee is not as hot or as per the sugar ingredients which he wants? That means he will lose his cool in the cockpit. What happens when there is a weather turbulence which is getting serious? Will he lose his mental balance? What happens there is a hijack situation? Will he lose his mental cool? What happens if there is a technical glitch in the aircraft? And the aircraft has to be, emergency landed at some place. Will he lose his cool? Can we entrust such a person with such mental frame of mind and erratic behavior and temperament with the safety of the crew and the passengers on board any aircraft? I won't like him to be sitting next to me in a passenger seat if he can lose his cool so early and start hitting the other person. And another point which comes up here is, what was the CISF doing?
Yes, that's a question I am also going to deep dive into.
Even the people with Z security have to leave their security outside the airport. I, as a corps commander in Kashmir, when I went to the airport, my security people were staying outside the airport. I used to go inside the airport, single person without any weapon or without anything to protect me. And the thing was, or the assurance was, the CISF is there, they will protect me in case something goes wrong. CISF failed to protect this bona fide passenger on the departure terminal. CISF failed in their duty 100%. And this gentleman got so provoked that he hit a person bleeding in front of his infant child and his wife.
I think
most inhuman.
we need to raise
yeah.
the.
I wouldn't like to travel. I wouldn't like to be flying in an aircraft if this gentleman is in the cockpit. With this type
Captain
of a mental
Randhawa,
temperament and erratic behavior.
Lieutenant General Dillon has raised some very pertinent points over here. Apart from, say, the psychological disposition of this pilot that one needs to weigh in on right now, it is, of course, being studied also. But Captain Randhawa, more importantly, even the role that CISF is playing, this is not a first. Remember what happened in August this year at the Srinagar airport when there was an army official who had attacked, I believe, 4 staff members of SpiceJet. One of them, in fact, had a cracked spine, one had a cracked neck. So what is the CISF doing? Is CISF also failing to do its job?
You see, first and foremost, good evening to you, Akanksha, and my fellow panelists. First of all, I would like to make 2-3 things corrected over here. First is that for crew and for staff members, they have a separate entrance and for the security check. There is a separate lane. And for the other passengers, you have many more lanes which are there. So even if you are off duty, since you have an airport entry pass, the crew or the staff members, they can use the staff lane for security check. So that is in order. If he was in uniform or he was not in uniform, because I can't see his stripes, so he's wearing a pullover. So
but the CISF report states that he used his uniform and the ID card, his identification, to this when he was off duty.
Because the AEP pass I can display even as a normal staff member. You know, when I am going through the security, I may be in uniform, I may be in civil clothes, but I wear that AEP and I can use that lane. So both were, as far as we are concerned, both were as passengers.
Okay.
He was not operating. If he was operating the flight, what the general rightly said, firstly, it's a very, very, an incident which has taken place, and it is of a big concern, which needs to be investigated properly. And what you said is right. What was the role of the CISF? When this heated argument started, and that was the time that they should have intervened and separated them. Secondly, why was the passenger allowed to come by the CISF into the crew and the staff lane? They do this. It has happened with me a couple of times where I had checked the CISF staff that this is meant for crew and staff, because at times I have seen altercations taking place, and what they do is to decongest. At times they put a couple of passengers there. Now sometimes the crew is in a hurry and altercation starts. So this has to be avoided. 2-3 steps which the CISF needs to take is firstly not to allow the passengers to use the lane which is meant for crew and staff members. The second point is intervention has to be at the right moment. In Kashmir also what had happened was absolutely unfortunate. And this needs to be investigated. At present, of course, the passenger has been hurt, Ankit Diwan. And what is surprising to me that he finished his holidays and then lodges an FIR.
No, but all of that is secondary. Captain Randhawa, don't you think that this pilot now has in fact stained his own career graph? Can such a pilot, such a hot-headed pilot even be trusted?
See, what I want to tell you is that he was not traveling as a pilot. He was traveling as a passenger
That's
on another
immaterial.
carrier.
That's immaterial right now, especially when it comes to the behavior that he's displayed, as Lieutenant General Dillon rightly highlighted, that if he is in fact...
It is not the right thing. I am again repeating myself. It is wrong. I say so. It is wrong. And this needs to be investigated. Now, what I heard from people that this passenger started abusing. Now, there was an abusive exchange that the CISF report will tell what is the exact thing. They should even take out the video coverage. The video coverage has to be taken, and it needs to be investigated that what actually triggered this.
Lieutenant General Dillon wants to make a point, and it's of course a matter of inquiry right now. But Lieutenant General Dillon, as you make that point, do you also believe that airlines are now being given a long rope after we've already seen the kind of meltdown that took place in December this year? In March, an AI flight reported clogged lavatories. You're also looking at wheelchairs being denied to the senior citizens. What are we signing up for when we are paying for that ticket?
Firstly, a point which Captain Randhawa made, in the military, as a commander, under no circumstances, in a tense situation, I can lose my cool. That would result in loss of lives of my soldiers and my own life also. That may result in a loss of face for the nation. Similarly, a pilot, whether off duty or on duty, his mental temperament has to be so stable and cool that he does not really lose his cool or his temperament on any provocation, because he is entrusted with the lives of 300 or maybe 400 or 200, depending on the aircraft. Those many lives are entrusted in his wisdom. We cannot take this alibi that he was a passenger, that's why it does not affect how he is as a pilot. As a human being, he is unfit to be a pilot in the cockpit with 300 people on board, if this is his mental temperament.
Okay.
Now, coming to your point about how the airlines, yes, ma'am. The airlines, they come, all the culture of the foreign countries, like most of these MNCs, when they come in, they're very good. At the end of the day, after a few weeks, months and years, they start behaving like Nukkad Wali Dukan. They start fleecing you like that. They lose all the ethos, all the culture, all the customer service provider relationship. They behave like demigods. I have seen passengers standing on the gate waiting for the wheelchair, not able to stand. Two people are helping them stand, but the wheelchair is not there. And just for Captain Dhawa's information of your viewers, today I traveled by air, and I saw the same thing happening today. The person on duty, he was not a CISF person, he was a civil agency person, guiding the normal passengers into the crew lane today morning. And CISF is one thing, the others who are employed, the civilian boys who are employed on the airport, they have no clue what they're doing.
Okay, I'm running short of time. I want to quickly bring in Captain Randhawa also. Captain Randhawa, the CISF report also says that they were not forced to sign any kind of undertaking or file a formal complaint. My point is, why shouldn't there be a formal complaint, or why shouldn't there be pressure to sign an undertaking when you have an incident of violence of this magnitude?
Absolutely right. If the incident took a violent turn, this should have been recorded. And as I said over and over again, I have said that you need to take outrage. The cameras would have recorded all this.
All right. I'm sure that will be done. I'm sure that will be done. You made that point. And thank you so much. I'm running short of time, but thank you for raising those very valid, pertinent points, Captain Randhawa, and of course, Lieutenant General KJS Dillon as well. And that's all I have for you in this edition of Brass Tacks. Thank you so much for watching. Up next is the Hard Facts with Rahul Shivshankar.
This is News 18 Network. India's largest news network.
Against India, that's already in the making. In a CNN News 18 exclusive news break, we've learned that Bangladesh is eyeing a Saudi-style pact with Pakistan. So Pakistan and Bangladesh will be working on mutual defense agreement. The proposal has already been discussed at top diplomatic military levels. Joint mechanism has been formed to draft agreement as Dhaka's military is keen on a strategic defense pact. Multiple rounds of military-level talks have been held, and Army, Air Force, Navy chiefs of both nations have met repeatedly. Several military MOUs have already been signed. The draft is likely after Bangladesh general elections to be taking place. Now, this entire reset in ties is taking place rapidly after Sheikh Hasina's ouster. We are also learning that Pakistan is in talks with 8 countries on similar pacts. What bearing will this have on New Delhi? Let's deep dive, and for that, let me introduce my guests today. I'm joined in by Ambassador Veena Sikri, who's a former Indian High Commissioner to Bangladesh, Sushant Sareen, who's a senior fellow at ORF, Dr. Mohsen Ali, a renowned freedom fighter of Bangladesh in 1971. Thank you so much, Dr. Ali. And I'm also joined in by Salahuddin Shoaib Chaudhry, a renowned Bangladesh journalist. Thank you so much to all of you for joining in. Dr. Mohsen Ali, if I may begin with you, I think you're the best person to comment on the kind of Islamization we are seeing. Much credit is offered to Sheikh Hasina for cracking down on the hardliners, especially the ones who were also in the opposition. But was enough done? What explains the sudden burst of these hardliners now running amok?
Yeah, hi, good morning from New York. Thank you very much for inviting me into your program. Yes, we know what's going on in Bangladesh now, and Sheikh Hasina was the right person to run Bangladesh situation. And during her tenure, and from 2009 to 2024 middle, so there is no Islamization, there is no terrorism. There are some occasional terrorism, but Sheikh Hasina fixed all those, and Bangladesh was enjoying the golden period, golden time during her regime and during her rule. And Bangladesh has got tremendous development during her time that Bangladesh never saw before. But after her ousted, for last about 15 months, 16 months, Bangladesh is going down all the way to the Pakistan level. And Pakistan is very deeply involved in Bangladesh from middle of last year, because they want Bangladesh back into the Pakistani fold, like as East Pakistan or a confederation with Pakistan, because Pakistan wanted another front against India so that Pakistan can fight out India from east and from west, both sides. That's why they're making this the military pact, like Saudi Arabia that you just explained. And these militants are trained by trained by Pakistan, because the IS style, the Khilafat style government they want to install in Bangladesh under the leadership of Jamaat Islami. And there are a lot of the militant groups in Bangladesh, and all are under Jamaat Islami, and Jamaat Islami wanted to occupy Bangladesh, and in fact they occupied the Bangladesh, and Dr. Yunus is just the puppet of their ideology. Although Dr. Yunus is a well-renowned person, but he's a puppet of Pakistan. So this is how the terrorists are developed in Bangladesh under the leadership of Jamaat Islami. They secretly, that as they describe that is a meticulous design. They have been training for over last 53 years since the Bangladesh was liberated with the help of India.
So, Shoaib, if I may quickly bring you in on that point that Dr. Mohsen has just now raised, do you think that they were always dormant? They never went away, these dark forces, so to say, whether it is Hafazat-e-Islami or the Jamaatis, they were always perhaps operating, and so was the ISI through these Jamaatis, and maybe, just maybe, Sheikh Hasina's crackdown on these militant organizations also helped them to unite together, because remember, that is also what ensured the ouster of Sheikh Hasina. Yet one wonders, why are student leaders now being attacked and targeted, when it was these very student leaders that helped them to ensure that Sheikh Hasina is sent out of the country?
Thank you very much, Akanksha. Please allow me to tell the truth. Since 1971, the independence of Bangladesh, each and every government, including that of Sheikh Hasina, has this way or that way appeased Islamists and upheld political Islam. Now, when we are talking about Sheikh Hasina's government, she has definitely fight for terrorism, militancy in one hand, and she has patronized Islam, which does not believe in democracy, which promotes caliphate rule. Sheikh Hasina was at the utmost promoter of the Gaza madness, the anti-Israel madness, chanting slogans in favor of Palestine on the streets of Bangladesh,